What evil prank have you pulled off? I used to work for a cruise line. A passenger asked if the crew lives on the ship full time. I and my co-worker explained that no, the crew leaves every night to fly back to Miami and then returns each morning. She walked away satisfied. After that cruise was over, our manager was sharing the passenger evaluations with us and was confused about one in particular. It was a woman who had stayed on deck 14 and had complained that she couldn't sleep at night because of the noise of the crew helicopter. Fact 1. 200 crew do not leave every night, but do live on the ship. Fact 2. That ship didn't even have a helipad. Question. WTF was she hearing every night? Someone in the next cabin using helicopter sounds as ambient noise to sleep. 48 minutes of soothing, relaxing, meditating Vietnam War sounds for studying and thinking. People in school used to always take my Gatorade. So I took an empty bottle, filled it with dyed salt water, and let them take my drink. Not gonna lie, it was hilarious watching one person to spit salt water in the middle of class only for their unbelieving friend to do the same. They just take your Gatorade, #BULLIES. Gradually over the course of 2 weeks moved my coworkers' monitors closer to the front edge of the desk, like 1/4 foot per move, until they were so close the keyboard barely fit. Stupid small desk, she grumbled. Near the end, I then moved them back, just as slowly. Over a few weeks, she never caught on. Michael. Over a decade ago I worked in the warehouse of a guitar center. We dealt with inventory, shipping and receiving. We had a dumpster behind the store in a shared parking lot that people would leave random things in, even though it was not a public dumpster. One day we found a broken beach chair in an open cardboard box. The box had a shipping label on it. It was left in such a way that it was easy to assume that the chair/box combo was left by the same person. We packed the beach chair in another box and shipped it back to the customer. I wish I was there to see the person's face when they received their trash back via UPS. Haha, I did something similar, but nowhere near this epic. There is a used bookstore that I go to sometimes. This bookstore sells used postcards. I bought a few that had been previously sent 20 to 30 years prior. I then slapped a fresh stamp on them and tossed them into the mailbox. I wish I could have seen the people's reaction when they showed up. It's all fun and games until you get a postcard from someone who's been dead for a decade and you freak the fuck out. I think that's why people post it in the evil prank category. I lived in Korea for a bit. When my mom came to visit I told my Korean girlfriend it was an American custom to greet older women by touching elbows. I told my mom the same story about Korean customs. It was a thing of beauty. They were not pleased. Simple, elegant, thoughtfully harmless. The perfect prank. 10/10. Would recommend. One night I replaced every framed object in my boss's office with a picture of me making a stern face. Posters, certificates, photos, etc. Took like 3 hours because he had like 30 framed things in his office. The next day I made sure I was out doing field work to make him sit with it most of the day. He had a lot of foot traffic to look at his office that day. I worked in an office that had 4 offices with shared partitions that had glass at the top. My neighbor wasn't the most observant person and kind of a dick. So I started printing random pictures like Nicolas Cage and setting them on my side of the office facing into his. He never noticed. It got to the point where everyone else in the office would check what photo I had set that week, but he never caught on. He knew. He just pulled a Stanley and collected his paycheck. Picked out every last marshmallow from my sister's box of Lucky Charms, then took a photo of me eating a bowl of Just Charms, printed it, and put in the bottom of the bag. I then sealed the bag back up, hot glued the box, and back in the pantry it went. This isn't a prank, this is the work of Satan. I remember it like it was yesterday. At summer camp my cabin's leaders found a little snake that wasn't doing so well, so they decided to put it in an old terrarium in our cabin. A few of the guys were nervous about it, so the next day, when the leaders decided the snake was well enough to release, I asked that they keep quiet about releasing it. When the other guys got back to the cabin and found no snake in the terrarium, chaos ensued. I thought my mom was cool with me having a pet snake. We went weeks without issue. So one night I'm letting it lay on my stomach while I watched TV, and at some point he decided to drop down and check out underneath the couch. His name was Breakfast. Kids are weird, and I say oh man. Breakfast is under the couch. My mom was sitting maybe 15 feet away in our little office space, and she jumps up on the desk chair and starts screaming about the loose snake. Breakfast wasn't allowed out for TV time much after that. My mom had the same reaction to my noodle. I told her before I went on a week vacation that I was buying a snake when I came home. True to my word, I showed up with a pet snake after the trip. My mum was okay with him as long as she doesn't have to go near him. She would stand on the opposite side of the room until she realized ball pythons are literally the most docile snakes ever. I have gotten her to try and feed him a few times with my dad's help. Apparently she speaks to him saying, "Here noodles. Want a yummy mouse? I have mouse for you. Noodless." I have also gotten her to hold his tail. But if he looks back at her, bets are off and she's back across the room lol. I don't know why she said it was okay for me to get him. I have noodles and a hognose now. She thinks the hoggy is cuter, but hates her more because of the attitude. My mum's laptop wallpaper was a picture of her granddaughter. I copied the picture 100 times and made her wallpaper a slideshow of the same picture over and over again. So the file would change but nothing would change visibly on the monitor. The pictures would change every 10 seconds. On one of the images I painted a tiny little curly mustache on her. So randomly for 10 seconds my niece would have a mustache. My mum thought she was either losing her mind or had a computer virus, and every time the mustache popped up, it was gone by the time she tried to show anyone. Diabolical. I assume she's in an asylum now. There was a mustache, I swear. A mustache. Not a prank I pulled off, but one I was victim to. My manager had left me in charge of the store when I was 16. Not legal, but that's a whole other mess. For a whole weekend. Saturday went well, and I was happy with how I went. Although my paranoid brain is always concerned about whether or not doors are actually locked. I'm the same with my house. But the store was worse. So I make my dad drive down to the store to double check that everything is okay. 15 minutes later I get a phone call from him saying, "Manager and the police are here because the door was unlocked and people were inside." Cue to me on the floor in tears hyperventilating, while my dad is telling my mum, who had since picked up the phone, that he was only kidding and that everything was fine. 1 year. My sister had to move back into my parents' house. I was like 15. She was a little older, mid-20s. April Fool's comes. And I know my sister woke up at like 6 AM. So I took out the light in the kitchen, put Vaseline all on the refrigerator handle, and put a rubber band around the water gun on the sink. I waited for her to go in the kitchen. I was in my room pretending to be asleep, and all I heard was shit, followed by a shit, followed by her screaming my name and waking up my parents. My parents were not happy. Floor was soaked with water, and it woke both of them up. I'd do it again though. Edit, water gun thing. There is a small little black sprayer to the right of the sink. You pull it out. It has a hose connected to it, and you can spray down dishes and such. Welded a co-worker's boot to the floor. He had worn out the toe caps on his steel-toed boots while he was making a weld kneeling inside a large piece of equipment on steel. I put a small tack weld on his boot, so he had trouble breaking it loose and getting up. Dude was harassing my ex because he used to have a cell phone number. Was being a real fucking creep. Anyways, I created an email address, signed up to Kijiji, and placed an ad offering an 80 feet 3D TV for free with some excuse about a bad breakup and not wanting her to get it. I asked people to only text or call. I then went to bed and forgot all about it until the next day at work. I'd get a text from my ex asking if I had done something on Kijiji. The dude was begging her to take the ad down and apologizing. I checked the email and there were 5 pages of responses, even though I had told them not to email, but to call or text. Dude's phone must have been ringing constantly. I took the ad down, and she never heard from him again. One that was played on me. I took my SATs, college entrance exams, for those outside the US, on April 1st. Should have known right. But apparently, I'm not that smart. That night I went out with a group of friends. And when I got home my mom met me with a serious look on her face. She told me that the testing committee had called, that there had been an error and all test papers from that day were lost. Everyone was being contacted to schedule a date to retake the exam. She totally sold it. Face, reactions, everything. I bought it hook, line, and sinker. And she let me believe it until lunchtime the next day. My mom is a diabolical person. The fact that she'll let you believe it until the next day is evil lol. I used to work at a science tutoring center when I was in college in my gap year before professional school. One of the things we taught very often was anatomy. So naturally we acquired a few skeletons and various skulls with some variation in how they looked or were marked, etc. Well, I was closing one night and I knew my co-worker was opening the next morning early. So before I locked up I sorted all of the skeletons and skulls in a welcome party near the front door. I had one immediately at the opening of the only door into the room with several backup skeletons and skulls just behind at a table together watching on. The best part was that you have to turn on the lights manually and that switches immediately to the side of the door opening. So when she reached down to turn on the lights she had to come face to face with some lifeless skeleton skull in the middle of the shady opening. Needless to say she screamed. And it was loud enough to make our boss come to see if she was okay. Woke up to some colorful texts on Mayo. Still proud of that one honestly. Please tell me this welcome party was a bunch of skeletons in dirty sex positions. No, just all of them staring at the opening of the door. Bought a new TV after saving up for a couple months. Next day I played a video on the TV to make it look like it fell and was broken/cracked. And my housemates all individually fell for it, delighted with myself. Once I asked a friend for another friend's phone number. He gave me a teacher's number. I then went on to send multiple messages in a fake angry tone to my unsuspecting teacher. Fuck that diabolical genius of a friend. I hope you didn't reveal your name in any of those texts. Oh, he found out it was me. He was actually pretty pissed at first, but I explained it without throwing my friend under the bus and got off with just an awkward moment. I created a fake uniform policy poster for my high school. It wasn't perfect, but people were idiots, so they fell for it. It took everyone about a week to actually read the poster and see that it was obviously fake. Some people still showed up on the first day wearing the uniform that I designed. Edit. The uniform wasn't anything idiotic looking. Just khaki pants, white button shirt, church shoes, and black socks. The outrage was mostly from the fact that people couldn't wear their name brand clothes as a flex. One summer in college, I worked in the registrar's office, registering all the incoming freshmen. A prof who was a mentor to me was teaching freshman seminar and asked me to handpick a class for her. Straight A students, high SATs, whatever. So I did. 15 students, all named Sarah. I wonder if the professor took it in stride after finishing attendance. I suppose you're wondering why I gathered you together here today. Apostrophe. Sarah fixed it for ya, Sarah. Kept both regular and Honey Nut Cheerios at the house because my mom and my dad each ate one type and hated the other. Unless you look close, they appear the same, so one day I switched the boxes. The looks were priceless. I made fake versions of Internet Explorer that turn your PC off when started in the ICT class at school. I print screened my friend's desktop and hid a bunch of his icons once. He thought his computer just wasn't responding. Flipped the lights on and off while my sister and friends played with a Ouija board. Hasn't quite been the same since. Are you alive or dead? This is an important question.